The fact that you're able to take something that's on the inside of you and you're able to express it in some sort of sensory form, whether that's like visually things that we can see or by texture in the form of art, or you're sculpting something, God says that that is good. In and of itself, it is good. It doesn't have to be something that quote unquote is useful or is utilitarian in and of itself. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Momentum. And on this podcast, I share with you ideas on wealth creation, on purpose, and on spirituality. I'm your host for today. My name is Moyo Mamora. And what I'd like to share with you today, I think, is something that is extremely outstanding. And I'm going to be taking a text from Genesis chapter 1 today. And this is not just the creation story. I actually believe that this is something that is a blueprint and a masterclass on wealth creation, on leadership, and on business strategy. So think about this. This is 7 principles that I'm drawing out of that creation narrative in Genesis chapter 1 that would help you with how you create wealth, that would help you with your business strategy, that would help you with your leadership endeavors, and that would be transformational for your life. I actually think it's important for us to read the text first of all. So it's pretty long, so I'd say be patient with me. Grab your Bible, Genesis chapter 1, and I'm going to be reading from the New American Standard Bible, the 2020 edition. And so the heavens, actually, that's verse chapter 2. Actually, I should go to chapter 1. Now, Genesis chapter 1, the creation. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it says, and the earth was a formless and desolate emptiness, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. And then God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. It says, and there was evening, and there was morning. That's one day. Verse 6, it says, and God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. Notice the key word there. He's separating waters from waters. He's separating light from darkness. Pay attention to that. Verse 7, and God made the expanse and separated the waters that were below the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. God called the expanse heavens, and there was evening and there was morning a second day. Verse 9, and God said, let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the earth sprout with vegetation. Now pay attention to this, verse 11. Let the earth sprout with vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees on the earth, bearing fruit according to their kind. Pay attention to that word, with seed in them. And it was so. Let me actually pause there. So here's a seed principle. It's a principle of potential, that every fruit in it contains a seed that is of its own kind. So every principle of productivity, or every productive situation that we see, every result, every breakthrough, every successful strategy always has within it a principle within it. It always has a seed within it such that it can be replicated. So if you observe success in one area of your life, you observe a breakthrough in one area of your life, or even in someone else's life, I would not be going around chasing their wealth or chasing their success. I'd be trying to figure out what is the principle behind what got them there. This is part of what we see in Genesis chapter 1. Now, verse 12 says, the earth produced vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them according to their kind. And there was evening and there was morning a third day. And then God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and they shall serve as signs for seasons and for days and for years. And they shall also serve as lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. And God made the 2 great lights, the great light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. And there was evening and there was morning a fourth day. Verse 20, it says, Then God said, Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens. And God created the great sea creatures and the living creatures that moves, which the waters swarmed, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. Verse 24, Then God said, Let the earth produce living creatures according to their kind, livestock and crawling things and animals of the earth according to their kind. And it was so. God made the animals of the earth according to their kind, and the livestock according to their kind, and everything that crawls on the ground according to its kind. And God saw it was good. Verse 26, I love this. Then God said, now, all this while we talked about from verse 11, God establishing the seed principle of things producing after its own kind. And we see the outworking of that principle where the birds, the sea creatures, and the land creatures then were producing after their kind. And verse 26 then says, Let us make mankind in our own image, according to our likeness, and let them rule. Here is also another working of that principle. Over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every livestock, and over all the earth, and over every crawling thing that crawls on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Then God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed. It shall be for you, and to every animal of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life. I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Now let's go out to chapter 2, which I actually believe should have been part of chapter 1 because it's the continuation of that narrative, right? Verse 1, it says, And so the heavens and the earth were completed in all their heavenly lights. By the seventh day, God completed his work, which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work, which he had done. Verse 3, Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on it he rested from all his work, which God had created and made. Now let's talk about a few principles that we see over here. Genesis chapter 1 opens with this image of everything being chaotic, right? It says that it was formless, it was empty, right? There was darkness everywhere. And what God did is that God said, Let there be light, and there was light. That's the very first principle. It's the principle of vision. You see, when God saw everything was dark and was formless, God called the light out of the darkness. And the principle in there is this, is that, now remember I said in everything that we see, there's a seed principle. We saw that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 11, right? So this first principle is a principle of vision. It is you being able to look at something that doesn't look ideal. It looks suboptimal. It looks chaotic. It looks problematic, but also have the creative imagination to be able to see an alternate preferred option within that situation. Because God being able to call the light out of the darkness suggests to us that in the midst of every chaos, in the midst of every crisis, there is an equal or greater opportunity, for light. Even within the darkness, there was an equal or greater opportunity for light. And that's what God demonstrated here. This is the principle of vision, is that I can look at a situation, and even though it doesn't look like what it should be, I have the opportunity to visualize something different. I have the ability to see light in the midst of darkness. I have the ability to see success. I have the ability to see growth. I have the ability to see multiplication, even though the present circumstance doesn't suggest that that is possible. So you always want to start with vision. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a leader, if you're someone who's working on something and you'd like to be successful, you're working on a business, you always have to see what the preferred alternative is. And that's what vision is all about, is that I can look into that situation and I can see what the preferred alternative is. So great leaders always start there. They always start with vision. Where others see chaos, where others see disorder, they're able to launch something because they have a preferred alternative. They have a vision of what could be even in the midst of chaos. What's the second principle? The Bible tells us that even though there was darkness everywhere, God said, "Let there be light." So the second principle is the principle of speaking the vision, articulating the vision. You see, words in and of themselves aren't just like sounds. They're just not like the letters that make up that word. Words are containers for ideas. Words are carriers of ideas. They carry thoughts. They carry what's on the inside of an individual. So as I'm speaking to you and I'm speaking these words to you, what it's doing is it's carrying the ideas and the thoughts that I have on the inside of me, and it's superimposing them on you, and it's giving you a different perspective. Now, if you shared some of the same perspective that I share right now, what these words are doing is that it's coloring in those lines for you. It's adding a little bit of more context, a little bit of more structure and character to the image that you already have on the inside of you. If this is all new to you, believe me, now you're thinking differently. It's giving you a different idea about how you view the world, about how you go through the world, and how you move through the world. The Bible tells us in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, that by faith through the word of God, the world was framed. So the things that we see were made from things that we don't see. So words are doing, what they're doing is that it's taking that image, those ideas that are on the inside of me. It's a product of my vision, and then I'm articulating it. It's creative is what we're seeing in Genesis chapter 1. So your ability to then transcribe that vision that's on the inside of you, synthesize it, put it in words that are that can be comprehended, and then articulate it and express them in words. It's a very powerful thing to do. So when you have a vision, one of the most powerful things that you can do for you to create wealth, for you to be a great leader, for you to be a great business strategist and build a business, is you have to be able to take that vision and write that down in very clear, articulate terms. What is it that you see? What's the alternative that you see? What's the preferred picture? What's the preferred vision that you see? Because that which you see can then be transcribed into words that you can hand over to someone else, and then they can share that same vision with you and they can run with that vision. The other thing that we see in this principle, according to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, is that when you speak these words and you're able to articulate them clearly, again, remember, words are containers of ideas. They're expressions of purpose. They're expressions of intent. The universe itself responds. Everything in this created order responds to the words that you're speaking. Now it's responding to those ideas. It's bringing things together for you. So if you have a preferred vision, you see an alternate solution, even in the midst of that chaos, then you're speaking those words out. Guess what's happening? The right relationships are coming your way. The know-how, the right people are coming your way. And what happens is that, God then begins to orchestrate everything around you such that even the universe is responding to what it is that you're saying. And that's how the Bible tells us that this creative order was established, right? So number one is that you have a vision in the midst of chaos, in the midst of disorder, in the midst of what's suboptimal. You're able to get creative with your imagination and see differently about that particular situation. Number two is then you begin to give voice. You begin to speak because your words are creative. Your words are transmitting ideas into the universe. They're imposing ideas into the people that you're working with, into the people that are around you. So folks hear it. All the matter that's around you also hears it, and things then begin to take shape as you speak that word. You're also writing it down so it's clear and someone can then run with it. The number three here is God creates systems and order. Now, I think this is really, really, really powerful. You see, because order and structure is what sustains success. Your ability to then start building structure and building systems around your vision is also something that then becomes very, very important. What I like about this is if you pay attention to the words that are used in the creation narrative, it says that God called the light out of darkness and he separated the light from the darkness. He's beginning to introduce structure in the midst of chaos. He separates the waters that were above from the waters that were below. He separates the water from the land. He's introducing structure here. Now, what you got to understand here is that this is meditative text. This is not scientific text, right? This is from the Bronze Age, right? So we're talking about 5,000 years ago, thereabout. And if you sort of time travel back then and just imagine what the world was like, and you were a thinker from that era, what you're saying is this. You observe the world, you observe the natural order, and you're saying, you know what? I wake up in the morning, and what happens is that slowly light emerges. At some point in time in that cycle, it's dark all over again. But that system repeats itself consistently. And the consistency of that cycle allows me to organize my life, allows me to organize myself in communities. It's dependable. And then I'm beginning to also understand that certain things are responding to the light, not only just the way I organize myself, then the animals as well. There's certain animals that all of a sudden they're super active during the day, but then they're not active anymore. There's certain animals that are very active at night. I don't hear them, I don't see them during the day. Now we then begin to see how life is organized because of that consistency of the cycle of light and day, systems and structure. It's very, very beneficial. See, because God had a vision for an ordered world. God had a vision for a world where living creatures, human beings, would flourish within that world. God would be able to dwell with within his people in this ordered space. And that's the vision that he had. And for that to happen, he's creating systems, he's creating structure such that human beings can benefit from that structure. And that's like the third principle that is very important, is that when you have a vision, when you've been able to express it, when you've been able to articulate it, and you're releasing the words which are both creative, but they're also transmitting your ideas to those that are around you, you also then have to start creating systems and processes and structure around that idea. What's the light in there? What are the things that you have to separate? Where is the chaos in the midst of it? What are the things that I have to remove from all of that? You see, because your ability to introduce that level of structure and system is what helps with sustaining success. If we're talking about wealth creation here, and you understand, how much do I need to retire? How much do I need to save for me to buy that first investment property? How much do I need so that I can have a certain amount of income every single year? Now, once you understand that, you now start understanding, well, this is how much I have to start putting aside. This is how I have to change my life. This is how I have to adjust my habits so these things can be a reality. Or if it's in a business, it's like, okay, fine, this is how much money I have to make. That means I have to sell. If I'm trying to sell $1 million every year and I have a product that costs $100, that means I have to sell, what's that math? I have to sell 10,000 of those products every year, and that's equal to $1 million. Well, if I have to sell 10,000 of these products every year, how many people do I have to call? How many people do I have to market to? So therefore, I understand what's the conversion rate. How do I have to adjust my advertising? And so on and so forth. We start getting a sense of all these different things when we're introducing structure. Who's going to make the calls? That's my marketing department. If something breaks, who's going to answer the calls? That's my customer service department. Who's going to fulfill those orders, right? And all of those things are systems and structures that I'm putting in place so that I can get the results that I have seen and that I have communicated as a vision. Now let's look at number 4, establish multiplication principles. We talked about this. This is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 11. It says, let the earth bring forth each according to its kind. So there's a concept in here, is that when I see a result, when I prove out the concept, when I save my first $1,000, the same system of saving your first $1,000 is the same system that you're going to use to get to your $10,000, to get to your $100,000, to get to your $1 million. Now I have a vision. I want to get to $1 million. I've proven that out, and I know how to save $1,000. Can I establish a structure and a system that helps me get from $1,000 to $10,000? It requires scale. It requires multiplication. And how do I do that? And what God's saying here is this, in Genesis chapter 1, is that the principle is within the fruit. It's in there someplace. So now I have to then do is take that principle and figure out a way to multiply that principle. One of the ways you do that is by organizing teams. How do I get people? How do I organize the people around me? How do I organize and leverage the relationships that are around me? See, because you might save $1,000, but while it's the same principle, I can't do it all by myself. And that's one of the most powerful things that you have to understand. is for there to be multiplication, I have to work in teams. So what I know and what I'm doing, if I'm able to sell $1,000 and I'm trying to sell $1 million, what do I have to do then is I have to find people who can sell $1,000 each. Because if I can find 1,000 people to sell $1,000 in a year, then I'm getting my $1 million. How do I sell my $1,000? I teach them how to sell the $1,000, how to do it, the system that I've created, what worked for me. And that's one of the reasons why it's important for you to prove certain things out as a business leader. That's why it's important for you to prove certain things out as an entrepreneur yourself, as a leader of an organization, as an investor. When I prove out that principle myself, take real estate, for example. So when I was investing in real estate, I've been investing in real estate right now for about 20 years. When I started about 20 years ago, I did one property, it was a small property. I did it. I learned my lessons there. I've gone through my cycles of failure. But the same principle that got me that one property is the same principle that has gotten me several other properties, 20, 30, 40, 50 apartment units right now. It's the same principle. But I'm not doing it all by myself. In certain instances, I'm working with banks. I'm working with other investors that are partnering with me. But that principle is the same. I've created a system that works for me. My system might be very different from someone else that's out there, but it's a system that works. So it's why it's important for you to be very clear on the vision, for you to be able to articulate the vision, speak that vision as well. Number 3 is to put structure and systems around that vision. And number 4 is to create systems or principles of multiplication. Number 5 is to lead with purpose and stewardship. And here's what in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, it says, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion." One of the most powerful things here in leadership is the ability to empower people, to organize people, and to empower them so they can thrive and they can flourish in the context of your vision. So everything that God had done when he's creating the order, when he's expressing his vision for a flourishing world, it's all for the benefit of another. And that's why the principle of increase and multiplication can never just be focused on self. It has to be a principle that is not selfish. The outworking of it cannot be self-centered. It has to be one that benefits others. Because if you're selfish about it, it's not going to be long lasting. But it has to be something such that it causes others that are working with you within that system to thrive. This is the same principle of investing with other people. Because if I take money from investors, I'm not just taking it on goodwill, but when I get that money, I'm also providing them a return. I'm providing them a benefit as well. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I have to be able to provide them a benefit. They also have to be able to benefit from working with me and from being in partnership with me. So they get richer, I get richer as well. If you're leading people in an organization as well, you can't all be just about your vision, what you're working on, what it is that you want to do, but you also have to answer the question, what's in it for them? So I'm organizing, but I'm also communicating what's in it for them in everything that I'm doing. So you have to be able to lead with intent and lead with purpose. See, because now when I'm communicating that vision to those that are around me, communicating that vision to those that I'm working with, they also are able to thrive within the context of that vision. They also see themselves flourishing in that as well. They also see themselves prospering with that in that as well. So while I'm creating wealth for myself, I'm also creating wealth for them. While I am pursuing a vision that I see is also helping them find fulfillment within the vision that I'm also expressing and articulating to them. Number 6 principle here is to evaluate and celebrate your progress. Now, if I go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, and we see this as a recurring theme all through the different periods of creation here, where it says, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Now, this is one of the verses of scripture that I find as the most powerful endorsement for excellence. And if you are a creative, if you are an artisanal person, an artist, a musician, a poet, whatever that is, I think this is one of the greatest validations for what it is that you do. You see, because in the very first day, the Bible tells us in verse 4 that after God had called the light out of the darkness, he saw that it was good. And that was the very first cycle, the very first period. And that was good. So before we understood purpose, before we understood the intent, the utility of the light in and of itself, God saw that it was good. Many times people think that art isn't utilitarian. It has no useful value. But what God is saying here is that the fact that you're able to take something that's on the inside of you and you're able to express it with some sort of sense, in some sort of sensory form, whether that's like visually things that we can see, or by texture in the form of art, or you're sculpting something, or it's music that's pleasing to the ears, or it's poetry that's pleasing to the soul. God says that that is good. In and of itself, it is good. It doesn't have to be something that quote unquote is useful or is utilitarian in and of itself. It says the fact that you're able to take that vision that you have, that thing that's intangible on the inside of you, and communicate it in a way where I, in the world, in the natural order today, can encounter it and can interact with it, and it can appeal to my senses, that's good. That's great news for you out there if you are a creator, if you're an artist. And if you're not a creator, if you're just like a person who is, functional, just focused on productivity, you're a high performer, this is also something that's powerful for you, because it then is the foundation of excellence. Because everything that God was doing, everything that God was producing, everything that he was working on, the fact that he took his vision, transcribed the vision, and created order and systems around it for the benefit of others so that others can thrive, that is the basis of excellence. That is the foundation of producing good quality work, good quality products. Is that in the process of producing that, is it beneficial? Is it conducive? Is it fit for God himself? Because the ordered world today was such that human beings will thrive in that world with one another, but also in the context of relationship with God. So we see the foundation of excellence, and we see the foundation of art and creativity in that particular text. So it requires you assessing and asking yourself the question, is this good? Is this conducive? Is this fitting? Does this honor God? Does this represent the creative nature of God that is on the inside of me? Because in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, it says that he created us in his image and after his likeness. So does my output honor God? Is it pleasing unto him? And that's the foundation of excellence. That's the foundation of creativity. Now, number 7 here, the last point, you go to Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 to 4. It says that God rested after he had completed his work. So everything that we just talked about, everything that God did, from the vision, from the ability to express that vision with words, which is creation, and that's communication of those ideas, him organizing around it and creating structure and systems around it, him leading with intent and leading with purpose, him establishing a multiplication principle. All of those different factors, the Bible tells us here that all of that was considered work. Now, when we hear work and God rested from all the work that he had done, that's not that God, is on some heavenly island right now, sipping on some divine pina colada and just crossing his feet and not doing anything because yep, all done, I'm chilling. It's about the rhythm though. It's about the fact that the structure has been set up, the principles have been put in place, the production has been done, the intent and the purpose has been released. Now it's time to enter into the fullness of that thing. Now I can then begin to enjoy the benefit of everything that I've done. And that is to enter into his rest. Because if you follow this narrative and you look in the book of Exodus and book of Leviticus, when it talks about how the temple was being built, this narrative in creation is almost like it's a temple building ceremony, where on the last day, the God is enthroned and rests in that temple. So now when I've done all of that, is to be able to say, now I'm living it unto God, for him to smile at the work that he's done. I've created value, but I can reflect on the value that I have created and say, I've done my part here. Now it's time for God to enter into this, to rest in it. And I am now able to commune with God, commune with the Creator, the ultimate Creator himself, and enjoy my own rest as well. Look, folks, I'm telling you, all of these things that I've shared with you are powerful design principles that if you practice them on a consistent basis, I tell you, it would not only help you with creating wealth, it would make you a better leader. It would help you with growing, actualizing, and scaling your own business as well. If this has been helpful to you, I would encourage you to please like this video. It helps with the algorithm. Drop a comment in here and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that. Share this with someone who you know would benefit from you. And that's all I have for you today on Momentum. God bless you and see you next time.